In Allegheny County, to date, we've worked on over 25 cases and issued over 20 reports. I've testified in 5 trials. One of the reports led to an exoneration of charges in one of the cases. The sorts of crimes we've been looked at are mainly serious crimes, rape and murder, with some weapons and other related drugs, other crimes. More recently, we've been seeing more child rape, which I'll talk about briefly in a minute. The evidence is not body cavities. It's clothing, it's gun surfaces, doorknobs, shotgun shells. There's real good DNA evidence on all of these materials. They may have 3, 4, or 5 contributors in them, but computers can determine what the probative value of those mixtures are. The outcomes are interesting because in more than half the cases, there was a guilty plea, which can often be beneficial to the defendant as well as to the county. And the cost of not going to trial is another financial consideration. If you don't need to go to trial because the DNA evidence is now back in because there's a statistic, whereas before there wasn't a probative statistic, that's using science to possibly provide for more justice. In general, the guilty pleas led to shorter sentences than going to trial. I want to close by telling you about the last case here. I don't identify who the perpetrator is because it was an incest rape of a father who had repeatedly sexually assaulted his daughter from when she was age 7 until age 15 on a regular basis. He went to trial on this. The evidence T-shirt that the police investigators took off his back while they were interrogating him, in which his daughter's DNA was found by the computer at quadrillions of level, as well as a mixture from the inside of her bra in which she was present, but he was also there at a 5 million level statistic. So what the DNA did in this case is it corroborated the victim's story. And interestingly, also last year, we had another case that was very similar. This was in Westchester, New York. So you have these 2 girls, and the mother is out of the picture because of drug use, and they're given over to the father. And then from when he gets the kids, and the older girl is 7 years old, he begins raping her every week until she's 14. And then when he starts, and this is a pattern that social scientists observe, and then when she reached puberty, he began getting interested in the younger daughter. They ran away from home. There were several grand juries and so on. One of the major goals of the Westchester prosecutor was to avoid having these kids go back in front of a court for a 3rd time. And on a blanket comforter that was on the father's bed, there were these 5 DNA mixtures that the computer found contained both the daughter and the father. And at that point, there was physical evidence that there was a long-standing pattern of abuse, and he pled guilty. And what makes incest rape interesting from a scientific perspective, well, first of all, there's more of it than you might think. There are prevalence rates as high as 1% of girls sometime in their lifetime. It's very underreported, so it has a low detection. So when you actually get DNA evidence, and lab directors tell me from their experience, they think there are several thousand cases a year, you've gone from an almost undetectable crime to having physical evidence. Now you have DNA, and those statistics are almost never reported. And that's because with mixtures of relatives, most crime labs can't report a statistic using their threshold methods, and the DNA evidence is not used. Charges are often dropped, and the cases aren't actually prosecuted. And the reason they can't report a statistic is that the sharing of alleles necessarily between a father and a daughter. The daughter inherited one of the alleles from her father, and most labs have some sort of policy of interpretation, not just for sharing, but also not overstating a result by assuming, if you assume that they're related, the statistic is lower. With TrueAllele, it just separates out the mixtures into the different contributors, and there isn't an issue. And we've had homicides with up to 5 contributors of relatives, all related people and a drop of blood. So this is an interesting situation that you have all this important evidence that's informative for a pretty heinous crime, and most of it in the US isn't used, and it's a matter of interpreting the evidence. TrueAllele has been used in criminal cases, over 200 cases so far, at all levels, state, federal, overseas, for almost every type of crime, usually violent crimes or crimes that are very serious, where it's worthwhile bringing in an outside expert. And it's in addition to prosecution, we've also done about 15 cases for the defense, including post-convictions. In the United States, there are over 10 labs that have TrueAllele who are bringing it on board. 2 of them are using it daily, one in California and the other in Virginia. TrueAllele systems or case reports have now been seen in 23 out of the 52 states, either as reports, testimony, or the group's purchasing systems. So it's been out for 6 years and is reasonably widespread. And if you'd like more information, you can visit our website where slides for this talk and 90 other talks, as well as articles, publications, magazine articles, webinars about how the system works, and talks that were CLEs are there as well. Okay, thank you.